What can I do? St. John the Philosopher here. If you're anything like me, you can't help but look at the state of the world and get a distinct feeling of hopelessness. Things seem to be spiraling from bad to worse, and we feel like there's nothing we can do about it. But in the final analysis, I think there is. Each and every one of us has the power to change the world, or at least our little corner of it. Ironically, the one thing there may be wide consensus on is the fact that we're more divided than ever. Or at least few of us can remember a time when things seemed worse. But let's not split hairs. In my lifetime, I can't recall society being so contentiously parsed into warring factions, where people can't even talk to, let alone be friends with someone with a differing opinion. That hopelessness you feel is the result of those seemingly insurmountable obstacles. But don't give up just yet. If you notice in the intro, the main topics on this channel are religion, culture, and politics. And the order is important because I believe that one leads to the next, which leads to the next, and together they frame the three things that you can do to make the world a better place. Religion. A person's religion, or more broadly their worldview, is what shapes them as an individual. It's the standard by which they measure the world and their place in it. So the first and most important thing we need to do is know what we believe, why we believe, and always be ready to change. I know. It's three things in one. Well, I am a Christian, so I'm kind of invested in that sort of thing. The thing is, way too many people haven't really grappled with the big questions. Not consciously, anyway. They may go through life with some vague notions of right and wrong and a whole lot of even more vague gut reactions to situations they may encounter. So rather than having a firm moral and philosophical foundation from which to make sound judgments that hold up under scrutiny, they live with a squishy, situational sort of ethics that can change on a whim. This not only leads to a morally squishy life, but makes it extremely difficult to have the sorts of conversations that generate positive change. If you know what you believe and why you believe it, you can explain it to someone else so that they can intelligently respond. Three things can happen as a result. Either you agree to disagree, you change their mind, or they change yours. And that's why the last part is important, being open to change. Surprise, surprise, we can be wrong about things. Our logic can be faulty, our facts can be incomplete or just plain untrue, or we could just be blowing smoke about an issue we actually don't know anything about.
Discovered by the Germans in 1904, they named it San Diego, which of course in German means a whale's vagina.
No, there's no way that's correct.
I'm sorry, I was trying to impress you.
Oh.
I don't know what it means. I'll be honest, I don't think anyone knows what it means anymore. Scholars maintain that the translation was lost hundreds of years ago.
Doesn't it mean Saint Diego?
No.
No, that's what it means. Really.
Well, agree to disagree.
Whatever the case, our ultimate allegiance shouldn't be our own position, but to that ultimate truth we're all looking for. I understand how much we all generally love to be right, often so much so that we're willing to lie to each other and to ourselves to some extent to maintain the illusion that we are. But we need to be so in love with being right that we're willing to change our minds to do so. Culture. We most often think of culture as just the way we speak, how we dress, the food and entertainment we consume, and so on. But all those trappings of culture are built on a foundation of shared ideals. Culture, then, is at least in part a byproduct of individual worldviews that have come together to form a common group understanding of the way things work. That means you get a say in what culture looks like. And more than just you as an individual, but your influence on others as well. That brings us to the second thing we can do to make the world a better place. Cultivate relationships. Those conversations we were talking about before, the meaningful discussions about worldviews, those are for friends, not strangers on the internet. Contrary to popular belief, your fervent, well thought out, and brilliantly constructed monuments to rhetorical excellence are bound for replies like, well, like this.
Oh, come on! Oh.
Just don't bother. And yes, I understand that talking to strangers on the internet is pretty much what I'm doing right now, but hey, everybody can't be me. Seriously though, there are people out there with an outsized measure of influence, whose opinions or creative works today as in the past have had profound impacts on the way the general public thinks. Sometimes it's been a positive thing. Other times, not so much. However, this is advice for the little guy. Regular folks who, for the most part, are really only ever going to influence their own small group of friends and family. It might feel relatively insignificant, a drop in the pond as it were, but take heart. As Kevin Bacon has taught us, we're all connected by only a few degrees. That's actually what makes the personal approach so powerful. You convince 3 people, each of them convinces 3 more, and so on and so on. Just make sure you're convincing them of something that's true. Lies spread the same way, and so does trouble. And speaking of trouble, politics. A recent poll by the Cato Institute reported that 58% of Americans have political views they're afraid to share. Sounds pretty bad. But the deeper problem is that we're talking about political views as opposed to world views. Politics complicates things by coupling ideas to politicians and political parties. And for all intents and purposes, politics these days is very much like team sports. My team is always right, and the opposing team is always wrong, and we have to win at all costs. So sharing a political view often ends up feeling, well, kind of like this.
Come in! We are under heavy attack here! Send reinforcements! We need more troops!
Stand up. Stand up now!
Let's be clear. Political thought starts from the kernels of your worldview and are then refined and shared through culture. By the time you even get to political expression, it's mostly too late. The type of people who truly follow politics are generally entrenched in their own respective sides. As for the so-called swing voters, they don't pay much attention until big election seasons, if even then, and don't care to be lectured one way or the other in the meantime. All that said, here's the last thing you can do to make the world a little better. When it finally comes down to the voting booth, act out of your worldview and the best information you can find and verify. Vote with both your intellect and your conscience. Assume others are doing the same and leave it at that. Part of the reason our political discourse is so bitterly contentious is because we've fallen into the trap of believing that those who disagree with us are not just mistaken or approaching things from a different perspective, they're evil. Incidentally, this kind of thing is not new. And it starts with just a little bit of trust. Trust that 95% of the population wants the country to succeed, for it to be a safe and prosperous nation for all its citizens. Pretty much everybody wants that. Seriously, everybody does. We just differ on how to accomplish it. So don't project bad motives onto someone else's vote. Don't presume to know what's in another person's heart. You're not gods.
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
If you do find yourself in a political discussion, hopefully with a friend, don't start off talking about politicians or particular laws right off the bat. Talk about your worldviews. It's far more important. Well, that's all for today. This is St. John the Philosopher. Goodbye, God bless, and I'll see you in another video.